Well, good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Robert Adams, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Air Commodore Anthony Hindmarsh. Today we commemorate the anniversary of the Battle of Britain. The Luftwaffe began its aerial assault in July 1940, with nearly twice the aircraft and air crew as the Royal Air Force. Reich Marshal Hermann Goering believed he could wipe the RAF from the skies in 4 weeks, helping to pave the way for the planned German invasion of England. British and German aircraft clashed in the skies above England, and in August, German bombers began striking cities and civilian targets, marking the beginning of the Blitz. The turning point in the Battle of Britain came on the 15th of September 1940. That morning, British coastal radar stations picked up dense formations of German bombers and fighter escorts racing across the English Channel. Fighter Command scrambled 24 fighter squadrons to intercept them, and hundreds of aircraft locked in fierce aerial combat in the skies over Britain. Unable to defeat the RAF and faced with mounting losses that could not be replaced, the German invasion was cancelled and the Battle of Britain was won. That day was chosen to remember the significance of the Battle of Britain. While the majority of those who participated were Britons, Australians were involved, flying operations with Fighter Command, Bomber Command and Coastal Command. Flight Lieutenant Pat Hughes of Coomera, New South Wales, with over 14 kills to his tally and among the top 10 leading aces of the time, flew in Fighter Command during the battle. 35 Australians flew combat operations with Fighter Command during the Battle of Britain, 10 of whom were killed in action. They were among the airmen immortalised by British Prime Minister Winston Churchill in his powerful tribute to the men of Fighter Command. Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few. Shortly we will tell the story of Flying Officer Kenneth Watts, who was among the brave Australian airmen serving with the RAF who defended Britain during the course of the Second World War. This evening, we are honoured to acknowledge Air Vice Marshal Harvey Reynolds, Deputy Chief of Air Force and the accompanying delegation, and the senior Air Force Reserve representatives from over 20 countries meeting for the International Air Reserve Symposium. We also warmly welcome Group Captain Alan George, retired, representing the Air Force Association. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial. Australia's Federation Guard is the tri-service ceremonial unit of the Australian Defence Force. They provide a ceremonial presence at civil and military events and during visits to Australia by foreign dignitaries. The Guard will now dismount the catafalque party from the tomb of the unknown Australian soldier.
Party! Respond! Carnival Party! I stand! Up! Carnival Party! And up!
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are one and free. With golden soil and wealth for toil, our home is got by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty, rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains, then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
Carnival Party! Shall turn! Out! Carnival Party! Oh, turn! Out!
Was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations over more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Flying Officer Kenneth Watts. Kenneth Watts was born on the 18th of May 1921 in the Sydney suburb of Hornsby. Known as Ken, he was one of 5 children born to farmer Frank Watts and his wife Ellen. Ken grew up in Sydney's inner suburbs where he attended Dulwich Hill Commercial School and later Belmore Central Technical School. As a young adult, Ken enjoyed reading and was a keen sportsman, participating in swimming, tennis and football. At the outbreak of the Second World War in 1939, he was working as a lorry driver and living in the coastal suburb of Narrabeen. Ken Watts enlisted in the Royal Australian Air Force Reserve in June of 1941. 4 months later, he was accepted for pilot training and officially joined the ranks of the Royal Australian Air Force on the 11th of October 1941. He was sent for initial training at Bradfield Park before travelling to Narrandera in February of 1942, where he completed his elementary training. He then travelled to Melbourne, embarking for Canada on the 20th of May. On arrival in mid-July, he was sent to the town of Ulmar in Ontario, where he undertook advanced training flying Tiger Moth and Harvard aircraft. In October of 1942, Watts qualified as a pilot. A month later, he embarked for the United Kingdom. As part of the Empire training scheme, he was one of almost 27,500 pilots, navigators, wireless operators, air gunners and flight engineers from the RAF, who throughout the course of the war joined Royal Air Force squadrons or Australian squadrons based in Britain. Watts arrived in England in late October and joined the Royal Air Force, gaining experience flying a wide range of aircraft. He spent the first year of his service in the UK posted to operational training units, where he was exposed to new aircraft and fighting techniques. In March 1944, he joined Number 56 Squadron, based at Newchurch in Kent. Equipped with Hawker Tempest fighter aircraft, the squadron's primary role was air defence. Watts' unit was tasked with defending Britain from V-1 flying bombs, a German missile used to attack Allied towns and cities. Watts' squadron was also involved in routine missions to attack German trains and railways. These lines were essential to the enemy's ability to transport tanks, supplies and troops to the front. On the 29th of December 1944, Flying Officer Watts set out on a mission to attack German trains near Osnabrück and Hanover. After completing the mission, Watts' formation found they were being followed by 5 German Messerschmitts flying above them. The Allied aircraft were soon outnumbered when more enemy aircraft appeared and began attacking. Watts' formation found they were being followed. When the rest of the men returned to base that afternoon, Flying Officer Ken Watts was not among them. Officially listed as missing in action, Watts' commanding officer wrote to his father, saying, "When you receive this letter, you will have already had a telegram bearing the very sad news that your son has been reported missing as the result of air operations." Ken was leading a formation on a patrol in the battle area when a force of enemy aircraft appeared above them and attacked. After the ensuing combat, Ken did not return to base. None of the other pilots have been able to give any further information. Apart from the fact that he was one of our most efficient pilots, Ken's personality had made him beloved by all members of the squadron, and his place cannot be filled. Our deepest admiration goes out to men like Ken, who, inspired by a great cause, are fighting far from home. Flying Officer Ken Watts remained listed as missing until December 1945. Investigations into his fate had failed to find any trace of him or his aircraft. He was presumed for official purposes to have been killed in action on the 29th of December 1944. Flying Officer Kenneth Watts was 23 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left, among almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Flying Officer Kenneth Watts, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
If you're able, I now invite you to please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Canberra party! Respect! On! Canberra party! On!
Lest we forget.
Canberra party! In words! Done! Canberra party! Quick! March!
We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub of Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director, staff and volunteers, we thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.